a brief video on how to do some basic maintenance tips. This is specific to your EVOLV 2.0, Tour 2.0. So we're going to go top, down. Everything needs to be tightened. You want to do this at least once a month because things do come loose. So we're going to start the handlebars. These little set screws, you want to tighten those up. Make sure they haven't come loose during your rides. Just a little bit of a turn. There's 4 on each. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can check those. After you do both ends, you want to do the brake levers. There's a screw underneath that you want to adjust. If you need to move the lever position for whatever, this is what you undo. But just make sure that it's tight after riding. Okay, your bell, tighten that in place. That's just a Phillips bit. Next to the handlebar folding mechanism, this particular 2.0 has rotating locks. Pull it and down. Occasionally these will get use. So right inside here, there's a set screw that you can adjust. So you want to do it in small amounts, turning it counterclockwise, lining your bar up, and then making sure if you have the rotation ones to turn them in. If you can't turn them in, you've loosened the set screw too much and you need to tighten it. I'm going to back it off just a bit more. This is the same principle for the collars that pull out as well. And now there's no rattle in here. Same for the other side. These right here go all the way through. You'll need 4mm, a pair of them. And just turn in opposite directions on both of them. Okay. And then we're going to do the throttle. So there's 2 screws that connect to a clamp on the handlebar. Once your throttle's in the right position, just tighten that down. And then the brake levers and the grip we've already done on the other side. So moving down the handlebars, you've got your quick release. This should be relatively snug to do up. If it's too loose, it may slide down while you're riding. If you hit a bump, you want to make sure that you focus on that. Actually, once every time you ride, it's a quick check. 2 Phillips screws on either side, just holding things in place. Give them a quick check. Okay, and moving down, we have this collar down here. 3 screws, 2 on one side, 1 on the opposite side. Okay. And this is for an optional mount. It's just a screw, doesn't do anything, but it's there if you need to mount something. Moving down to the wheel, we have a 6mm hex bit on one side, and I believe it's a 17 on the other side. So we need to hold this in place while we tighten it up. Make sure that your wheel still spins freely after you've tightened it. You don't want to over tighten it and prevent that from happening. While you're down here, you can do the wheel. So there's 1, 2, 3 that you want to tighten up. Okay. This right here just holds your drum brake in place. And we'll come back to the brakes at a little bit later in the video. Moving backwards, we've got the folding mechanism. Down here we have a 5 that does connect to the other side. So depending on how loose it is, you may need a set of two, one on either side, just holding it in place. Up here, we have a rubber bumper. This is part of the folding mechanism. So it moves back and forth to make this latching tighter or looser. And to adjust that, there's two little set screws underneath here. This is free moving. Adjust those screws inwards, counterclockwise, to move this closer to here. Once you do that, this should be firmer when folding. You want it to typically be relatively firm so that you don't get any play while you're riding. Just below that, we have deck screws, 5 on the top. There's more underneath, but we'll come back to that once we flip the vehicle. And in front, there are also 4 more front cover screws. Okay, those are taken care of. Moving along the side, these acrylic tubes have set screws to hold them in place. So we have 1, 2, 3. These 2 up here actually hold in the headlight and the tail light. You want to make sure that you get to those and tighten them up. Not overly tight because they are small screws. And these ones here are going into plastic. Do the same thing on the opposite side as well. While we're back here, we can take care of the kickstand. That's a commonly used part on the vehicle, so it makes sense that it can come loose. And we've moved along the deck, both sides. Come to these screws in the back, same as the front. Pair of those. And now we're on to the back end. So on this side, get that out of the way, we've got suspension mounts. We have the mudguard mount. We have bracket support, and we have rear axle. We've also got motor and rim screws. All of those, both sides need to be tightened up. Let's start with the mudguard. Okay, and moving up here. This is a 2-part. So one here, and then there's a nut on the interior. It's a 13. You want to get an open-end wrench in there. That one's tight. Check the outside and check the inside. Okay. That one. Check that one. Now to tighten this, you'll need an adjustable wrench or a 18 open end. Again, if you tighten the axle, make sure to spin the wheel and check that it spins freely. So this is a 2-part one. It is easier to tighten these up once the wheel is out. So if you ever take the wheel off for a tire change, that's a great time to get inside of everything, give it a clean out, give it an adjustment. And the other side, we have our axle, which is an 18. Use a socket for that. Again, mirror everything you've tightened over here onto the other side. When you're done, don't forget to put the boots back on just so you don't lose them. Adjusting the brakes is also something you want to take care of every couple weeks. For the 2.0, it's relatively simple. You have an adjustment screw right here that brings this arm in and increases the pad closeness to the outer surface. So 1 or 2 turns, give it a spin, make sure there's no rub, squeeze the brake on the handlebar. Make sure it feels good to you. If it doesn't, you can always tighten up a couple more turns. Moving to the front, you want to adjust this one. You need to loosen this, pull down on the cable so that the arm moves up. Tighten this back in place, and we'll have removed a little short amount of slack from the cable. Again, squeeze the brake, make sure it feels good to you, make sure that the wheel still turns, and there's no rubbing. Flip the scooter over just so you can see the bottom. We're going to start in the rear, this is the rear motor, and work our way to the front. There's just a couple things that once it's flipped, it's easy to work on. We have the rear motor axle and motor screws, rim and motor screws. Check each of those all the way around. There's 6, and then 6 on the inside, and then 6 on the other side that you want to do. All of those should be checked. This is the underside of the deck, mirroring the top. We'll just tighten these if they need tightening. And while we flipped it, if you haven't already, you've got easy access to the set screws holding the acrylic tube and the lights in place. And then if you haven't already as well, you can deal with the front, tightening up the axle, as well as tightening up the rim halves. Checking your tire pressure is one of the things that should be done every couple rides. So to do that, take off the valve cover. This is a pressure gauge. It's nice and quick. It's good to have on you. If you don't have one of those, most pumps will have a built-in pressure gauge. This is one we use in the shop. It's battery powered, it's portable, nice and quick and simple. Lock it on there. You can set this one to whichever PSI you need to go to. So we've set this one to about 50. You'll hit go, it'll run and stop when it gets to 50. If you have difficulty accessing any of these, there's a range of valve extenders that we use just to get a little more length away from the rim and motor wall. It just screws on like that. There's a variety of shapes and sizes that you can get. Most bike stores will have them, and that'll just help you get some added distance if you have a pump with a larger airhead. Put the dust cap on when you're done, and then you're good to go. Do the front, put the cap off. If you need a valve extender, screw that on now. Otherwise, take the pump. Connect it up and pump it up. Tires should be between 50 and 55 PSI.